Hi, this is It's Gonna Be Okay with Dr. Roseanne, and I'm Dr. Roseanne. If you're new to me and you're looking for support as a parent, go to drroseanne.com/group to join our natural parenting Facebook group. It's free. And guess what? We're talking about the science of how to change brain and behavior safely, naturally, and effectively without any of those medications that aren't serving your kid's brain or behavior. So, we are continuing our conversation about developing coping skills. So, if you've been listening, you know that's the key to developing resiliency and grit and lifelong mental wellness. You even live longer when you are a glass half full instead of a glass half empty. And when you have coping skills, you just don't view the stressors in life in the same way, right? And I think as we are adults, we realize that. But it starts right out of the gate and how you support your child's ability to handle stress. And we've got to break from this bubble wrap parenting. And that is what really is driving the mental health crisis of our youth today is they don't have independence. We're not doing autonomous parenting. We're not letting them fail. And yes, it's much harder for our special needs kids, but there's a lot we can do. So let's talk about goal setting, how that's important, and what happens. So the brains of our kids who are neurodivergent, who have learning issues, who have attention issues, who are struggling with emotionality, all of these clinical issues are not officially diagnosed. If you have a kid that has poor stress tolerance, something is going amiss. Maybe they just don't have the resources and they're stuck developmentally. But a lot of times the dysregulated kids that we have clinical issues because 1 in 2 have a physical or mental health problem in America. And that number is growing across the globe as I work with so many people all over the world. So let's talk about how to break down tasks. So this is really important. So a lot of times our kids are frustrated. They look at, the size of their problem, it should be an ant, and they think of everything as like in terms of it's like an elephant, right? So they don't know where to start. They don't know how to break things down. And that's because we are not teaching them in a results oriented manner. They are not seeing the end result. We're going to talk about all these things, why the brain needs to see that. So when we break down tasks, we have to start with the end result. I talk a lot about this in my webinar, which you can go to my page, www.drroseanne.com/webinar, I think is where it is, but it's on the homepage. Just go to drroseanne.com and there's a free webinar about executive functioning that I'm pretty proud of. You can also get my EF toolkit for specific instructions on actually how to do this. And it's low cost. So if you're interested in doing that, please do. But you've got to teach with the end result. Okay. So the example that I use all the time, I think is just so practical and relatable. And it's about grocery shopping. So for those of us that have great executive functioning skills, right? When I go to the grocery store, I already know what I'm cooking. Like I see the meals. I don't just go to a grocery store. And when I do that, like last minute, every time I forget something and I'm like, oh. So when we have kids that are easily frustrated and they don't know how to break down tasks, it's because they're not seeing the end results. And you're like, what do you mean, Roseanne? You have to actually activate that part of the brain. You have to get that in a visual way, in a gesture way. You have to, get them thinking in that end result. So when they're like, it's going to be the worst day ever because, I have Mrs. Smith's class and I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like, okay, well, what's the task? What is it? Right. And you get them to visualize that task. Now, this isn't going to happen overnight. This isn't going to happen when your kid's freaking out and this is the first time you're doing this. You're going to do it every day. Right. So the same example, I love to use cooking, right? Because that's like a bonding thing in my house. Like you start with, well, let's make something for dinner. What do you want to make? I don't know. You get them to close their eyes. What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What do you want? Oh, I would love to have, salsa chicken. Okay. What does it look like? What do you think's in there? Then you work backwards. So we break down tasks in the same way because we need kids to cultivate problem solving skills and we need them to learn how to set goals. And that is part of the problem solving process, but they first need to break down the task. So we're going to always teach with the end result in mind. Start with the outcome that you want. That is what you teach. Then you work backwards and problem solve with them through it. You're going to have to do this a lot. You're going to have to do this quite a bit. And if you heard me talk about it, now my kids have a problem. They come up with a solution and they check in with me if it's a good idea, that solution. And I love it. I mean, it's taken a lot of parenting, but they're very confident. I got it, Mom. I got it. I remember I went on a trip and, my dad is a bit of a handful, pretty opinionated. We'll let it be what his political affiliations are, but they're not in agreement with ours. And I, said to them, be prepared for X, Y, and Z, because they were going somewhere without me. And they're like, we've already talked to Grandpa about this. Okay. We told them we don't agree with that. And we told them my mother doesn't like it. And they set up boundaries with him in advance. I was like, this is amazing. And they love Grandpa. You can't, just because you're in disagreement of some core things, like he's awesome. And you don't mess with an 85-year-old. They're not going to get your 85-year-old to change your affiliation. So that's not the point. The point is they problem solve on their own because they've had a lifetime of practice. I know I'm a psychologist. Okay. But you can do this too. We teach parents all the time. And it starts with getting that brain to see the end result. So when they see themselves, even just saying like, okay, see yourself completing the task. Okay. Yeah, it's going to happen. You're going to get it done. Okay. Now, what does that task look like done? You've got to get them to orient to that and then work through the steps. It never starts with a checklist like the special ed teacher does in the classroom. This is about executive functioning and building executive functioning. I have amazing blogs, if I say so myself, on executive functioning. Talk a lot about it in my book, It's Going to Be Okay. You have lots of resources. You can do this. This one simple hack builds coping skills and reduces that reliance on you. You have to stop being a life preserver and you need to be their swim coach. Okay? The swim coach doesn't swim it for them. The swim coach coaches them on how to be a swimmer. It's like the same thing with anything. But start with the end result, get their brain working that way, and you can do it. If you need more support, you can go to drroseanne.com/help, and it's going to walk you through the right solution. And, just know that you really got the power. You just need the constancy. And I hope this really helped you to think differently about coping skills and how much our kids need us and how when we shift, man, it's awesome. And it cuts down on friction. I can't say that enough. So you can remind all you want. If you're not building the coping skills, you're going to be stuck in a nag phase and nobody wants that. So you got the power, get started, stop the indecisiveness, and take action.